It has been a long time since I've been hyped for something in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While I'm not among those who think the MCU died after Avengers Endgame, it has been tough to get excited about any of their projects post Phase 4. That is until we got our first look at Deadpool and Wolverine, which I am beyond excited about. To prepare for possibly my most anticipated movie of the year, this seemed like the perfect time to platinum 2 X-Men games I've been looking forward to playing all summer: Deadpool and X-Men Origins Wolverine. These are 2 bloody superhero games that have been lost to time due to Activision's expired license deal with Marvel, but I've had them sitting around for quite some time now, so let's crack these games open and grab a couple of platinum trophies. Deadpool is a game I missed out on when it was released for the PlayStation 3, as I was busy playing what would eventually become one of my favorite video games ever made. I didn't pick this one up until 2016 on my PS4 after watching the first Deadpool movie. As a result, I'm starting this playthrough with 19 out of the 51 trophies already unlocked. 11 came from completing story objectives, 1 from collecting 100 tacos, and 7 were miscellaneous trophies my curious 15-year-old brain thought would be interesting to do. For this playthrough, the plan is to tackle the story on ultraviolence difficulty, upgrade all my gear, and complete as many of the numerous miscellaneous trophies the game has. Starting with level 1, we get our first bounty from the developers, High Moon, to kill medium mogul Chance White. Sneaking into the building, the enemies were soon alerted to my presence, but I made sure to score a 40-hit combo before the elevators were locked down. Following some interesting fourth wall breaks, I found myself in the sewers with a ton of enemies, making it the perfect opportunity to kill 15 of them by holding cooked grenades. We soon ran into Arclight, who has one of the easier boss fights in the game. I didn't even break a sweat, defeating her on my first try without taking any damage from her slam attacks.
Come on, baby, we can still work this out.
Shortly after this fight, Vertigo stopped me dead in my tracks, causing us to plummet into the sewage pipes. Going down this water slide, I had to get through it without taking any damage. Nothing difficult, but it did take a couple of tries after figuring out when and where to move. At the end of the slide, we witness Chance White's death. We confront Vertigo along with Blockbuster and Mister Sinister, resulting in Deadpool being reduced to a disembodied head. Upon waking up, we find Psylocke, Domino, Rogue, and Wolverine, who are trying to stop Mister Sinister. Joining the squad and taking the Blackbird for a joyride, we crash land in Genosha. I check on Wolverine by bitch slapping him a bunch of times.
Oh, Wolvie, time to wake up.
Rise and shine, Stubby. Wake up.
12 seconds later.
That's because the player keeps mashing the button. That's because I like slapping fleshy things with this hand.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
And finally, that's because the whole setup just added 5 minutes of bonus play to the most awesome game ever devised by mutant or man. I guess he's not waking up.
Curious.
Blasting my way through enemies, we find Cable, who... No, we already got a trophy for this. Cable warns us about Mister Sinister, but we never know the whole message since Deadpool pits himself out of his misery.
Damn it, Wade.
After being tricked into finding him by the opportunity of meeting a big-breasted naked woman who claims to be our #1 fan, I stealth killed 4 enemies that were in the Tower Plaza. Entering the tower to kill Sinister, I find a wheel of insanity that turns the area into a magnetic apocalypse. Just our luck, right? However, something good did come out of this. After shooting the balloons on this and a second wheel, along with a cow, I earned a trophy. We killed Sinister, and just like that, the story is finished.
That wasn't Sinister, that was a clone.
If only it were that easy. Turns out the real Sinister is holed up in Magneto's old citadel on the other side of Genosha. After getting a couple of parts to power up this old Sentinel foot, we used it to hop across the island. Rogue collides with us and we both crash into an old prison. She gets taken by Blockbuster and we fight plenty of enemies in our way. At one point, there's even a random party going on for Deadpool. Everyone from the game was partying their hearts out, and even though I already got a trophy for this, I was still chatting it up with some of the ladies. I did think it would be funny though to mess around with Deadpool and crank the dialogue settings all the way down to 0. Time out, stop, past me, just stop talking for a second. This is future me taking control for just a brief moment. Remember the last time they shut Deadpool up? No, not that. This. Do you want your subscribers to hate you, bro? Ooh, yeah, let's not repeat that mistake.
Well, this is boring.
To absolutely no one's surprise, this was all a trick and more fights were waiting for us. Making my way through the prison, I reached Sinister's lair where I stealth-killed 3 enemies with each of Deadpool's melee weapons and Sinister, but it was yet another clone. We find Rogue in the nick of time, but I had to fight Blockbuster.
Here comes a train. See you in a minute.
Well, that was embarrassing. Now that I knew what I was dealing with, I defeated Blockbuster and saved Rogue with a little skin-on-skin contact. We tried to save her again from Sinister's goons when Mr. Snookums catches the grenade we tossed, dropping us into Genosha's catacombs. Deadpool bleeds out and reunites with his lover Death, who wants his help to free mutant souls that linger down below. Back on my feet, Cable and I fight off more goons before I start 3 different trials to retrieve the souls. There are a couple of trophies to keep in mind here. The trials needed to be completed in a specific order, so I started with the statue on the left and made my way down to the right with each one. This was one of the more interesting levels to me, with plenty of moments that break up the core gameplay formula, like this 2D platforming section or an on-the-rails shooter. The latter was part of the 3rd trial, which transported me to a carnival line. I wanted to be civil, so I decided to take the patience option all the way through.
Yeah, boy, an award. Still not sure if it was worth it.
Once this trial was complete, I set the idol down and finished the mission while wearing the pirate hat.
Does this mean we're going steady?
On the surface, we raced the X-Men across Genosha to reach Sinister. In one building, I even found some random DP points and pistol ammo. Not entirely sure if there was a reference here, but it was definitely one of the weirder and more obscure trophies in the game. However, I was earning DP points at a pretty fast rate, so I was consistently purchasing upgrades. As I was wrapping up this mission, I had enough points to upgrade all my weapons to the max. We're now at the final mission of the game, which had me on the verge of breaking a controller. There are a lot of trophies tied to this mission that I was trying to complete, but only managed to get a couple of them done. First was getting across this floating debris without falling. I can't tell you how many times I missed a jump and had to restart the checkpoint, or just died, but after taking 20 minutes to get through a relatively short section, I finally got past it without falling. But it would only get worse from here. With that trophy out of the way, I had to defeat waves of enemies at Magneto Citadel, which gave me enough DP points to purchase all player upgrades. Now it's time for the final fight against Mister Sinister, which was almost my breaking point. The fight simply would not end. Clones were constantly spawning in, and I was struggling. Big time.
Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it.
It took me a total of 13 tries, but when I was landing my counters and combos at the right time, I finally killed the real Sinister, finishing the game on the Ultra Violence difficulty. With that playthrough out of the way, my next goal was to go back through certain levels and complete the miscellaneous trophies I missed. Some were straightforward, but others took multiple tries to complete, which did get annoying after a while. Bringing the difficulty back down to easy, I began with level 1, where I got from the studio lobby to the boardroom in 5 minutes without dying. Fighting the enemies I absolutely needed to, I was cutting it pretty close, but got it done in 1 try.
So, where do we go from here?
Only one way to go.
In level 2, when Vertigo cuts us off, I needed to activate 3 switches, defeat 2 phasers, and chase her within 60 seconds. On Genosha, I had to reach the fangirl using only hammers and pulse rifles. And now we get to the more difficult miscellaneous trophies. During the mission Landed in Prison, there's a sewer section roughly halfway through, and I had to get past this toxic river without falling in. This really sucked, because if you do fall in, like I did several times, you can't restart from the previous checkpoint. You have to replay the mission all over again, and it takes quite a while to get back to this section. I had to replay it a few times, but once I successfully made it through, it was a sigh of relief. During the same level, there was another trophy for completing it without countering any attacks. This sounds way easier than it is. Just don't press the circle button, right? I was doing fairly well, running past any enemies I didn't need to fight, but sometimes that muscle memory kicked in and I would end up countering, meaning I had to replay the mission from the beginning. Between the last trophy and this one, I started to become very irritated with this level. It took me a few tries to get through, but I was very satisfied when this trophy popped as well. Now we can get back to some of the easier miscellaneous trophies. During the Road to Victory mission, I shot up a copier that was in the bridge offices and completed a breach in 10 seconds. Returning to the final mission, as I mentioned before, there are a few trophies to take into account. The two I was going for were finishing Front Gates of Evil from start to finish using only pistols and katanas, and without dying. When I was playing on the Ultra Violence difficulty, I knew I wasn't going to get through it without dying, but I really wanted to finish it with only my pistols and katanas. Once I reached the last section though, I knew it wasn't manageable, so I saved it for now. Slicing and dicing through enemies, along with Sinister clones, after 10 minutes or so, the two trophies were mine.
Enough! Deadpool, you are a repugnant!
However, we aren't finished here just yet. On these floating stairs, I had to score a 75 hit combo, which was made easy with the SMGs and Scythe. I also had to die 10 times in a row on the stairs.
Ouch. Dipshit.
The final miscellaneous trophy I took care of was reaching a 300 hit combo. I really wanted to get this naturally, as there were a few times when I surprisingly got close, but I ended up cheesing it. During Road to Victory, there are a couple of Earth Shakers and an enemy that provides them with shields. Drawing them out and leading them to this part of the level, I blasted one of the Earth Shakers with every weapon until my combo meter eventually reached 300. The final aspect to cover is challenges. These are wave-based combat arenas that play out on maps we've seen throughout the game. However, this mode does something interesting in terms of how you earn medals. Each challenge starts out on the bronze tier, and you have to complete the challenge on that tier before you can unlock the next one. I initially thought it would drag this mode out, but there aren't that many maps, so it wasn't too bad. Early on, I completed a silver tier challenge while countering at least 25 times.
Yeah!
And on the same map was the best chance to combo an entire wave on the gold tier, since there were very few melee enemies during the first wave.
Nice work with the shooty choppy.
The last trophy I worked on was completing 5 gold challenges, which took some time, but was nothing too difficult. Once everything was said and done, I got the trophy
Yeah!
and the platinum for Deadpool.
Man, that was pretty good.
We now move on to X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is an interesting package. It's no secret that the movie wasn't that great, and at a time when movie tie-in games vary drastically in terms of quality, it was also expected for this game to be a colossal failure. But to the surprise of many, this was a fairly decent movie tie-in game that outperformed the movie it was adapting. However, I am just now experiencing that for myself. I remember playing a demo of this when I was a kid and watching my cousins play it one Christmas, but other than that, I didn't think much of it. However, I decided to purchase this game back in 2022 on eBay for only $40. I'm very glad I decided to buy it then because it would have cost me a pretty penny if I bought it now. Fresh off my playthrough of Deadpool, let's see how well X-Men Origins Wolverine holds up 15 years later and get ourselves a platinum trophy. Our story begins in Africa as Team X searches for a village holding a precious mineral presumed to be adamantium. Our helicopter gets shot down, and it's time to put the claws to work. Learning the basics of Wolverine's combat system, we encounter different enemy types that will be prominent throughout the game, grab some dog tags, and witness all the gore this game has to offer. Seriously, this game is a bloodfest, and I found it hard at times to believe that it was based on a PG-13 movie. Like, you can literally see Wolverine's flesh and bone when he takes enough damage. That's fucking awesome. Getting into the trophies, I earned my first one for performing a quick kill, which is done by grabbing an enemy and pressing triangle as the screen flashes. Making my way through the African jungle, I found a mysterious hatch, which was one of the first Easter eggs in the game. It's from the show Lost, but I've never seen it, so it's a reference I sadly don't understand. Slicing and dicing through enemies, I eventually got my 100th kill, and lunged to my 25th enemy. After fighting the Leviathan and reuniting with my brother, we're taken to the present day 3 years later. Logan has settled down in Canada with his girlfriend Kayla, but his past welcomes him with open arms when Deadpool is waiting to have a drink with him at the bar and... Wait a second, that does not sound right. Future me, could you pull up the Google Doc for Deadpool and Wolverine, please?
Dark and stormy night. Deadpool is contracted to kill media mogul Chance White, who is blah 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 diddy blah blah. Don't need that. Edit that.
What the hell is going on here?
Why are we trying to kill what's-his-face?
Who cares? I'm making art here. Behold!
No, we're not doing that.
You pressed the wrong button!
Okay, where were we? Yes, Wolverine's past comes to haunt him when Victor is waiting for him in a bar. The two brawl in the game's first boss fight, and this is where I learned to perform a counter move for the first time. When the fight made its way outside, I threw Victor at a spike point where he was impaled. Once he is defeated,
Logan, be careful!
Wolverine loses both his claws and Kayla when Stryker arrives, offering an opportunity for revenge. At the Weapon X facility, we get pumped full of adamantium, and after overhearing Stryker's order to terminate us, we break free and fight our way out of the facility. We get a new Fury attack with Berserk, fight advanced enemies like the Elite Commando and Ghost, along with the hulking Wendigo prototype. Fighting it was pretty simple, as it follows the same formula as the Leviathan. Lunging on its back was going to be the most effective, and doing it for the first time gave me a trophy. After the fight, I lose my regeneration and feral sense, but run into Carol Frost, who wants to help me escape and stop what's going on here. At least that's what I think, because the dialogue seemed to cut out here for some reason. Yeah, this is awkward. I soon get my abilities back and unleash them in the most badass way possible.
Hey, somebody take my picture.
They sure send me a copy.
Back in action, I fought my way through the facility and killed my 10th enemy using objects in the environment. I soon encountered a new enemy type, the Grenader, and I don't know if my feral sense kicked in, but after pressing the block button at the right time, I killed him by reflecting his rocket back. Continuing the fight, I lunged to my 100th enemy, quick killed 3 enemies in a row, and escaped the Weapon X facility, ending Chapter 1. Chapter 2 starts with another flashback where I am tasked with destroying an ion emitter. Climbing this tower, I killed 10 enemies by throwing them off high areas, and performed my 15th counter move. With the tower destroyed, I'm brought back to the present in Alkali Lake. Hunted by Stryker's men, I earned a lot of combat trophies, with the first one being unlocked after killing a total of 500 enemies. I proceeded to kill 50 enemies with Berserker Rage, killed 20 enemies with quick kills, killed 30 enemies with environmental hazards, and dismembered 100 enemies, which I'm surprised took me this long to get. As the chapter neared its end, one of our old pals, Nord, was getting closer to meeting the other end of my claws. On this rooftop, he shoots one of the containers, unleashing another Wendigo prototype for me to face. However, there are 4 of them that would be released at some point, so instead of waiting to fight them one by one, I let all 4 of them loose and fought them at the same time. I could have weakened them first before releasing another, but I wanted the challenge, and it honestly wasn't that bad. Taking out each of the helicopters, we put an end to Nord.
You ever notice good people tend to die around you?
Continuing the search for Victor, we look for an old friend named Wraith who has been kidnapped. At a robotics facility in the southwest United States, we encountered deadly robots and Sentinel prototypes, which were definitely one of the better mini-bosses in the game. Now though would be a good time to talk about some collectibles. I touched on this briefly, but the biggest thing to look out for is the game's 95 dog tags. Along with that are mutagens, which boost Wolverine's core abilities, and tokens that unlock challenge arenas where we can earn additional costumes. I initially tried to find a guide that encompassed all this, but only managed to find videos for the dog tags. There are written guides out there, but if there's one thing you've learned about me by now, it's that I'm a visual person and need to physically see where I'm supposed to go. However, I didn't have much trouble finding the mutagens and tokens on my own. During this chapter, I collected half of the dog tags in the game. As for the mutagens, each one comes with 3 different tiers, and I had to raise one to level 3, which happened to be the Rampage mutagen. I also got another combat trophy in this chapter during a flashback when I lunged to my 250th enemy. With the help of Raven, we found Wraith, and hold on a second, were these 2 always a thing here?
You be careful, Miss Darkholm. That's my son you're carrying in there.
Sorry, let's get back on track. I make my way to the roof where we encounter the Sentinel Mark I. I was freaking terrified going into this fight. I mean, just look at the size of that thing. It did do its job and kill me once, but after attacking its feet and hands enough to destroy them, the Sentinel took off, leading to a freefall sequence where it was ultimately destroyed. To finish up this chapter, there's another boss fight against the Blob in a grocery store. One aspect of these fights I have yet to mention about is the destructible environments. There aren't many, but when they appear, like in this fight, they really stand out. It even ties into a trophy where I had to destroy all objects in the grocery store. I did take longer than I should have, as I was waiting for Blob to attack me and destroy any objects in the crossfire. I didn't realize until actually fighting him that I could ride on his back once his health bar dropped to a certain amount. It took me roughly 10 minutes to demolish the store, and a few more to defeat Blob.
So Bob, tell me, what's this island?
Close to finding Victor, and an island that imprisons mutants, I head to New Orleans looking for a fellow named Gambit. Oh, Taylor Kitsch, what have they done to you?
Look how they massacred my boy.
Gambit doesn't take kindly to us being here, and it turns into a fight throughout the casino with Stryker's men and assassins standing in my way. It was during this chapter that I was able to wrap up a couple more combat trophies as well. I got one after killing 200 enemies while using my feral sense, and for killing my 25th ghost enemy with their own shotgun. After a couple of fights with Gambit, we duke it out atop the casino where he is defeated. Whoa! And offers to take me to the island. Going into chapter 5, we start with another flashback. We're getting closer to the village and have to secure the area from pretty much every jungle enemy we've encountered so far. During this opening section, I knocked out a couple of aerial trophies. Luring some enemies to a corner, I slammed my claws into the ground, launching 6 of them in the air at once. Next was performing 10 air grabs, which was very easy with the machete enemies. Proceeding further into the level, I used Berserker Rage every chance I had, getting my 150th kill. With the area secure and a clear path to the village, this wrapped up the final jungle mission. Providing more context on Team X's downfall, we're back in the present and on the island to finish the game. Everything comes full circle as Kayla is revealed to be alive and we discover the secret project Stryker used our DNA for. After another scrap with Victor, we find Weapon 11. Despite this being the worst version of Deadpool we've ever gotten, his boss fight was pretty fun. I mean, it doesn't do anything drastically different from the other boss encounters, but there was a nice balance in terms of difficulty to end the game on. But you know what would have made it better? If Wade tossed out some quippy one-liners, but that's just me beating a dead horse here.
Anime power-up time! Chimichanga!
After Deadpool is defeated, the story of X-Men Origins Wolverine comes to a close. With 36 trophies under my belt, there was still a bit to do before diving back in for a second playthrough. The first thing was finding all the dog tags. I ended up finding 94 of the 95 dog tags, missing one during Chapter 5, Level 1. I realized it too late the first time around as the path was locked off, so I came back to collect it after the story. There were also plenty of miscellaneous trophies I missed during my initial playthrough. In Chapter 2, Level 5, I found a hidden cave with a quest marker above a skeleton along with the sword, referencing the popular MMO World of Warcraft. Taking this teleporter in Chapter 3, Level 5, I found a secret room with a cake. This was probably my favorite Easter egg, as Portal was the only reference I was familiar with. After taking out an engine during the Sentinel freefall sequence, a big explosion sends a ton of debris my way, including an O-ring. I had to fly through it, and I missed it at first, but it stuck out like a sore thumb the second time. Moving on to some combat trophies, I worked on lighting 20 enemies on fire. Letting the machete champion ignite me, I lunged at some machine gunners until 20 of them were set ablaze. On this bridge in Chapter 1, I used my Claw Cyclone attack to kill 6 enemies with a single attack. Before finishing these up, I want to deviate to the challenge arenas and unlock some additional costumes. As I mentioned earlier, there are these Wolverine tokens that can be found, and I believe after finding 2, this unlocks a challenge arena where we can fight another version of Wolverine in some iconic threads. I found enough tokens to unlock 3 of the 4 arenas, and sometime during a fight, I performed a Wolverine to Wolverine lunge. Sporting some new drip, I returned to the combat trophies. I worked on killing 200 enemies with a claw spin, which is a relatively low number in the grand scheme of things, but even with it fully upgraded, some of the tougher enemies were oblivious to this attack. I ended up playing some earlier levels to get the remaining kills, which weren't that many. Amid the combat trophies also come combat reflexes. The way this works is that the more enemies of a certain type you kill, the more damage you can cause to that particular enemy. There are 5 reflexes to take into account: machete, machine gunner, jungle mutants, robots, and specialized military units. As you can see, 3 out of 5 were at level 2 by the time I finished the story, but this was arguably the grindiest part of the game. Even with all the cleanup I did so far, the only reflex I maxed out was the machine gunners. There is a mutagen out there that increases the rate you earn reflexes, and even with it maxed out, it still took me a while to level these up. To get these reflexes to level 3, I found myself replaying Chapter 5, Level 1 for jungle mutants and machete enemies, along with a couple of chapters during Level 3 for robots. I have honestly lost track of how many times I replayed these levels while my reflex meters slowly filled up. It took me a few hours to work on, but I broke up the monotony every now and then to work on some more trophies like this one, where I killed 25 enemies with a reflected projectile. I also got a trophy sometime after for killing a total of 2,000 enemies. A few hours of grinding had passed, and all combat reflexes were at the max, with Machete being the last one I finished. Next, I fully upgraded every ability. By the time I finished the story, I was at level 33, and with all the grinding I did, this got me to level 37. With 12 upgrade points, I thought I only had one more upgrade for my claws, but no. Turns out there was still one more upgrade for my Claw Cyclone attack, which required 3 upgrade points. This meant I had to level up 2 more times before I could unlock the upgrade. Luckily, there was a good spot during Chapter 4, Level 3, with plenty of assassins, ghosts, and other enemies that dish out a ton of XP. I only played this level a couple of times before having enough points to buy my final upgrade. The last thing I needed to do before getting the Platinum was play through the story again on the hard difficulty, which is unlocked after finishing the game for the first time. Let me go ahead and say that I don't mind playing the game again on a harder difficulty, but I'm not a big fan of how this game goes about it. If it were a New Game Plus kind of deal, I'd be more than happy to do another playthrough. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and I had to start again from square one. All the upgrades I made, mutagens found, and dog tags collected went out the window, and I had to fight enemies that took way more hits and could kill me faster. I was slightly annoyed by this, and I could bitch and moan all day, but that wasn't going to get me the Platinum, so I put on a podcast, set aside a few hours, and got to work. It was a challenge, especially with some of the bosses, but when everything was said and done, I completed the game again on hard, unlocking the Platinum for X-Men Origins Wolverine. "25 hours, 102 trophies, gallons upon gallons of blood spilled, and I had a blast. Playing through these games over the past couple of weeks to prepare for Deadpool and Wolverine was a fun trip down memory lane. Out of the 2 games, X-Men Origins Wolverine was probably the one I had the most fun with. Deadpool was just okay. I don't think it does anything offensively bad, but it's an experience I probably will be forgetting soon. The story was fine, and combat was serviceable, but some aspects could have been changed to better serve this game. It also stuttered about every minute or so, which really took me out of the experience. Nolan North does deliver a stellar performance as the Merc with the Mouth, and honestly, carries this game for me. It's just a bummer the rest of the game didn't quite deliver. Wolverine, on the other hand, was a bloody good time. While it follows the story of the movie, there are plenty of additions that work in this game's favor, like the Sentinel boss fight for example. Combat is your standard hack and slash affair, but it feels so gruesome and incredibly satisfying ripping enemies up limb from limb. Even though New Game Plus would have made the experience 10 times better from a trophy hunting perspective, it's an aspect that only diminishes the package slightly. X-Men Origins Wolverine is a game that shouldn't have worked, but the love Raven Software has for the character is on full display, resulting in one of the character's greatest video games. That's all for the video. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I know it's been a long time since these games were released, but what are your thoughts on them? Did you play Deadpool or Wolverine back in the day? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. See you guys next time.